So as part of your tenure as an RPD, you were in charge of the region that was responsible for, I guess, the recount in Florida.
Yes.
Do you have any war stories or anything you can share on that?
Well, it was the recount was fascinating. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where when as paid staffers in the middle of it, we hated. I'm not exaggerating. We hated every day we were there, because number one, the election should have been over. And so, in politics, you kind of look, you kind of do look forward to the vacation you're going to take after an election. I'm a guy who likes to hunt. That's hunting season for me. And there was no hunting season that year. And so, so part of it is, you felt like that, the election should have been over, and you should actually be able to start enjoying life a little bit more. The other thing is, we felt like we had won on election day, and then we felt like during the recount every day we felt like the Democrats actually were essentially stealing the election back that we had won fair and square on election day. So from a staffer's perspective, and I was on the ground in Palm Beach County. My job, which was kind of the epicenter of the recount. My job was, once we actually started counting ballots there, I was a lot like a basketball coach. We had volunteers. We had great volunteers who came in from all over the country. They actually enjoyed their time there, in part because we had so many of them. I mean, we never had to work volunteers more than probably 4 or 5 hours a day. And then the rest of the time, essentially they were almost on a paid vacation because we had lots of good donors who were paying for it. The volunteers had all their expenses paid. And we just had so many of them, so many good ones that we didn't have to kill them. As paid staff, that was a totally different animal. I mean, we were working 20 hours a day, every day, and it was not a fun process at all. Fascinating, but not fun. It was truly hand-to-hand combat, and especially in Palm Beach County. And like I said, my job was almost like a basketball coach. We had volunteers. We had a counting floor where any given moment there were 30 different stations set up where essentially county employees were counting, Bush and Gore ballots, and we could legally have a volunteer at each counting station, and needed to make sure that the process actually was being done correctly. And so we would rotate volunteers in. Well, it's very exciting the first day you do it. But as you can imagine, watching somebody count ballots for hours on end is not exactly the most exciting, part of campaign life. And so what we would do, because we had so many of them, my job was to kind of keep them fresh. So we rotated in people. I would never let anybody sit any more than maybe a couple hours in any spot. And we kind of watched how they were doing it, making sure they were doing their job right and doing it well. And so I just kind of rotated people in and out, kind of like like a basketball coach, rotating the subs in to, give the stars a rest a little bit. And so, so it was very interesting. It was totally different than anything else we ever do in a campaign. I mean, it was a totally unique animal. Obviously we were under, we were definitely under the microscope of the media, and the Gore campaign with what we were doing. And so, we had to be really careful and make sure everything we were doing was legal and fair. The worst thing about it for me, probably the most interesting story, is the first 4 days. We didn't start counting ballots until about a week, almost a week probably. I don't remember all the days because they really all run together from the recount. But we didn't really actually physically start counting ballots like I just described until I don't know, 6 or 7, 8 days probably into the process. The first 4 days literally were just total chaos. They were so chaotic that my clothes were lost on the airlines. I literally had to wear the same clothes. I put on a suit on Tuesday morning on election day. I actually had been in Florida for several weeks. On election day, I put a suit on because at the end of the day, about 5 o'clock, I was hopping a plane to D.C. to be basically in Washington on election night at the RNC. And so, of course, normally on a campaign, you don't wear a suit. But since I was going to be at the RNC, that night, I felt like I needed to dress up a little bit. So Tuesday morning, election day, I got up, put a suit on, worked all day in Tampa at one of our headquarters there. Got on a plane late in the day to go to D.C. Was actually at the RNC all night long as numbers were coming in, obviously realizing that the election was not over. I literally at about 6 a.m. Was just getting light. I was actually leaving the RNC thinking I might get a couple hours of sleep because I'd been up 24 hours in the same suit. And I got a call that said I need to go back to Florida immediately, like the first plane I could get on.